This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
You gotta do it. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
That always puts me in a good mood. The return of the sausages. That's Keir Starmer for you. We'll be talking about him today as well here on Lembit Öpik Live with me, Lembit Öpik, on Unprecedented TV. So glad you could join us. Before I go anywhere else, please subscribe by going to Unprecedented TV on YouTube. All you have to do is click one button. Doesn't cost you anything. Please subscribe. The more of you subscribe, the more we can get done. And remember, we're going to be starting some juicy news shows in the very near future, if you're watching this live, including Good Morning USA. We were talking about various things to do with the station with Sarah Evie Clark, who will be the anchor for that, all the way from Dallas. All the way in Dallas, if the United States is where you happen to live. So that's coming up, and so many other shows as well. I've also been at a film festival, and that's been fascinating. I'll talk more about that with somebody from the film festival this week, so that's also to come. And we might be getting some of their absolutely outstanding output for Unprecedented TV. Some full-length features and some short films as well. All of that to enjoy here on Unprecedented. But for now, let's talk about something which has been getting more and more attention if you're watching this live, and that's the peace talk scenario about Ukraine. Donald Trump is exercising a great deal of pressure on the various protagonists. America has come up with a 28-point peace plan, and quite rightly, they're talking with the Russians about that. The Europeans and Zelensky and Starmer trying to muscle in on it. They're all irrelevant in my view. Zelensky's got a little bit more relevance because he actually lives there, though he has mucked up his own war effort. But as for Europe and the UK, I don't think they're very relevant. We'll find out with my guest, Warren Thornton, in a few minutes what he thinks. Well, the 28-point peace plan introduced by America has now been countered by what I think is a 22-point peace plan by Europe. They even have to ape that. But how important is it? To what extent does the head of NATO, the very odd, in my view, Mark Rutte, have any say on it? Keir Starmer flew away again. Great to see he's no longer worried about his CO2 footprint. That's because we've done the climate emergency. That cult is now pretty close to being in the dustbin. But he's still trying to get some kind of international relevance by turning up for these kinds of events. But does Europe have any say in the matter? Does the United Kingdom have a voice? And what about Zelensky? Is he a busted flush? I tend to think he is. Maybe Warren feels differently. And how will this end? Or will the Russian meat-grinding war machine just simply carry on since they are gaining ground? It's a bloody battle, that has to be said. A very, very bloodthirsty conflict. But when you're winning, you're perhaps under less pressure to stop than when you're losing. But you wouldn't think that when you listen to Zelensky and his little buddies in Europe who keep saying, fight, fight, fight. Now, where did I hear that before? So at any rate, at this stage in the week, we're looking at further developments and quite speedy ones. Perhaps by the time you're watching this, things have developed even further. But joining me today, as always on a Monday, it's Warren Thornton. Warren, who is an investigative reporter and a former sniper, a man who fought in the Falklands. That's right, isn't it, Warren?
It is, yep.
So you're much more qualified than me to talk about the battlefront. But let's just start, first of all, with the big picture. How's Ukraine doing? If you watch the ministry, do you think they might be winning?
It's doing spectacularly badly. Kupiansk has fallen this weekend, of course, and Siversk, which is another area that, shall we say, of some significance, is close to falling as well. And once Siversk falls, and of course Prokofsk It's pretty much there. Minor Rad is completely encircled. There's a few hundred left fighting there. They then can push north, and then they can push either east from Pokrovsk, or they can literally from Seversk, they can push west, and that either way they will complete what will be a massive encirclement of literally the areas that they haven't captured in the Donbass, which will be Slavyansk and Kramatorsk.
That's all quite confusing. If we can get the map up, maybe you can explain to us what the story is here. Oh no, that's not it. I think that's something to do with part of the conversation we're having a bit later on. Can we just get the map up of Ukraine, please? Big picture you're saying though is that they're losing, that Ukraine is losing, and there's the map there. So Ukraine is losing, and it's losing handsomely, you're saying?
Heavily. So if you look at the map where it is at the moment, you've got Donetsk there. So halfway between Donetsk and Luhansk, you can see that little just above the N. If you go just above the N of Donetsk, you can see that little point coming out there. That little pocket there, that's Pokrovsk. And of course, you can see the L of Luhansk there. Now, if you draw a straight line from that point to the one in Donetsk that I've just highlighted, that is where Kramatorsk and Slavyansk are. And that, of course, is the area that they could cut off and make a huge cauldron out of.
And they've done that before, you've said, essentially. They're systematically isolating and then either exterminating or capturing the soldiers, depending on the response.
Yes, absolutely. They've done it in Bakhmut. They've done it in Avdiivka. They've done it, should we say, up in the region, in their own regions as well. Of course, when they had that incursion, that idiotic incursion into Kursk. And of course, they've done this on many, many occasions. What they do, it's like a cauldron with an open end at one end. So it's like if you can imagine a huge bowl, they make like a bowl shape with one open end. There's only one road in. They get it to the point where there's only one road in and one road out. They don't risk too many Russian troops. They just keep constantly bombarding until either the nerve cracks or the soldiers try and run away. They either try and run away and they get wiped out, or they surrender, or Ukraine try to put more troops in there to relieve the situation, and they get picked off going in.
Well, this is the thing, though. I've been hearing fighting talk from Vladimir Zelensky, the failed war leader in Ukraine, who says, well, we have steely resolve. We're like metal, but even metal can corrode and weaken and so forth. It seems like quite empty words from him. We can talk about the details of what's been going on in terms of the peace in a minute. But how do you interpret what Zelensky's been saying to his people? And I should say, I don't want to show it now because later on, if you're watching this live at 11 a.m., you can actually see that the full or most of the text of Zelensky's appeal to his people. But in summary, what did he say?
The rhetoric was, that of course we're doing the very best we can, and of course he's trying to deflect away from the corruption and the loss of life and everything else. And of course the people are, shall we say, they're wise to him by now. The mobilizations and everything else where they're forcing people onto the front line, the situation that is happening to the soldiers who are left without food and just left there basically by the regime that are in charge here. Zelensky's in charge of what you might call the lunatics have taken over the asylum. There is nobody in their right mind apart from people who are paid or have a vested interest in keeping Zelensky's regime on track. Anybody that is thinking that this is going to end well for Ukraine, I've a bridge to sell you, I'm afraid, Lembit.
That's just ridiculous. That this is my opinion. Of course, viewers can have a different view, but it's ridiculous to think that such a terrible performance can be reversed. I'm told that roughly at the time of broadcasting, 1/5 of Ukraine is now in Russian hands. Is that right?
Yes, it absolutely is. But the thing that really breaks them is many people go, oh, Russia haven't moved. And what they'll use as propaganda is Russia haven't moved anywhere. Well, they don't need to, because they keep throwing Ukrainian soldiers at the Russian lines, and they keep picking them off. And remember, territory doesn't shoot back. That's the problem, Lembit.
Yeah, well, that's a very good phrase. Territory doesn't shoot back. Yes, I haven't heard that before, but it's fairly obvious. So the story so far, from what you've said to us, the Russians are clearly winning. Both sides are taking casualties. Ukrainians more than the Russians. They're gaining land. They've got about a fifth of Ukraine, and Ukraine keep making the same mistake again and again and again. They go into what you call the cauldron. They get trapped. They get killed, or they have to surrender. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. How it basically happens is they'll go and grab somebody off the street. He doesn't want to be there, so he might suffer a beating. Then he'll go to a barracks or a holding area for about a week, where he'll be given a rifle or a gun or whatever, and he'll be then thrown onto the front line, dropped off, and they're left to their own devices. Hold the line, don't retreat. And of course, if they do retreat, then you find that their own side are more than willing to pick them off. In fact, we've shown video after video of drones that execute their own soldiers for even surrendering. So it is an incredibly difficult scene for Ukrainians, and many ordinary Ukrainians are dying. And of course, we're seeing lots and lots of rhetoric, aren't we, online, saying, oh, Ukraine fighting for democracy and freedom. They're not. The people that are online are not these people that are going onto the front lines to fight the war. Many of these, shall we say, X is now publishing half of where these people are, and most of them are either in the UK or they're stuck in call centres in India. It is quite incredible.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
I suppose your first priority on the front line wouldn't be to enter social media, would it, really?
No, it absolutely wouldn't be. And of course, these people have no compunction whatsoever. They're paid to do a job, and their job is to, shall we say, push the propaganda of this war. It's very much akin to what was happening in the 1930s, when there was a certain gentleman going on the radio saying, we're pushing here and we're pushing back the invader here, and all the time he was sitting in a bunker. And this is pretty much what's happening to Ukrainian troops.
So let's get to the brass tacks here. There's been a lot of development which could even invalidate this program within a day or two. But and it'll be interesting to compare with what we say with what happens. 28-point plan from America, and it's an interesting one, because essentially they're saying that Ukraine loses land, no NATO, and Russia back in the G8. What is in Trump's 28-point plan to end the war? Volodymyr Zelensky, said he would speak to Donald Trump in the coming days to work on the plan. Now, essentially, remind us, what are the three demands of Russia?
So the three demands of Russia are very, very simple. It's no Ukraine in NATO ever, to demilitarize the Ukraine, and, of course, denazify it as well.
That denazification point is an interesting one. You don't tend to hear that very often in the British mainstream and in the Western mainstream. Tell us about that.
Well, the whole idea is that most of this, or the Azov battalions, as you can see on the right-hand side there, you can see the trident on the flag. Now, the whole idea is that the Azov battalions, and indeed Sersky and Zaluzhny, who is in Britain as the ambassador, are very much, shall we say, akin to this ideology, which is about as far right as you can ever get. And of course, what we're looking at here is very much Bandera, who was many people call him a Nazi collaborator, and of course the Galatian Regiment and everything else. These are, they have torchlit parades, and it's very much akin to the 1930s Germany that they had there, and many people carry the tattoos, the insignia, and the shoulder flashes, and that includes Zaluzhny, and includes, of course, Sersky, who is Zelensky's right-hand man.
So, Azov bad in your view?
Oh, they're absolutely appalling. There is no question whatsoever the ethnic cleansing that they were carrying out between 2014 and 2022 when the Russians went in. Now, don't get me wrong, the Russians could have gone in simply because they were fed up with NATO doing what they were doing, expanding east and everything else. But certainly the Azov battalions gave Putin every excuse to go in by killing Russian-speaking people in the eastern Donbass for about 7-8 years.
Pretty heavy duty stuff. After the, I need to just go to a break for a minute. But after the break, I want to talk about what this 28-point plan really means. We don't have to go through it point by point, but there's a confusion to me as well. There's a 28-point plan by American, a 22-point plan, wrongly called a 28-point plan, or 24-point, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not a 28-point plan. There's some confusion about that by Europe. And the question I'll be asking you is, to what extent does that even have any relevance? You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, here on Unprecedented TV on Lembit Öpik Live with Warren Thornton, investigative journalist, and also very well connected in the military world. Somebody who's very well connected with the problems of our world is Claire Dyer, with dire consequences. She had if you're watching this live, she had a demonstration over the weekend in her part of London. And hopefully we'll be able to talk with her about that one day this week on my show too. Claire Dyer finds issues of local concern but national interest, and they could affect you too. That's Dire Consequences with Claire Dyer. She's an absolute star. She attended an award ceremony with me recently. She's always a pleasure to be with, and she's brave. She takes on things that other people daren't touch. So have a look at Dire Consequences. The archive's there as well. Just if you subscribe to Unprecedented TV at the YouTube site, you'll see the whole lot, show after show of really insightful, high-impact stuff. Let's go back to Warren Thornton. We've been talking about the problems of for Zelensky, and now we've got this potential solution. And some say, "Oh, this is the way forward." And Europe's 28-point counter proposal to U.S.-Russia peace plan for Ukraine. Now that's wrong, isn't it? It's not 28 points by Europe. It's 28 points
24.
by 24. Yeah. So we'll come back to that one, because it seems that Europe is once again responding. It's reacting. Didn't do it itself. It's had 3 years to come up with something, and it didn't come up with anything. And so we've got this plan, but then we've got the other one, the larger plan. Well, I would say the more serious one, which is from Donald Trump. And Trump apparently talking with Zelensky at times, and Starmer and other people. Keir Starmer has spoken to Donald Trump and agreed their teams will work together on this. But Trump's basically got his people to come up with a 28-point plan. What's the big picture in that? I've heard that it's quite pro-Russian. Is it?
It is in some aspects, but not in others. There's a lot of misdirection going out and about. And I suppose the biggest takeaway from this is, first of all, Kellogg and many others, Lindsey Graham and everything, were completely shut out of this peace plan that was put together. It was put together by Witkoff at Trump's direction, and the whole idea was then to carry this. And
just explain who those people are.
Yeah, so very, very simply, we have Marco Rubio, who is the Secretary of State, and of course you've got Pete Hegseth, who is the Department of Defense, and Keith Kellogg, who was the ambassador, literally, or should we say, the general put in charge of this peace plan. Now, all three of them were cut out of this process, Lembit.
Yeah, I wonder why that was, actually. Document omits some of Washington's pro-Russia points and calls for Kiev's sovereignty to be respected. That's the European response. But we're talking about meetings like this, but there seem to be two parallel processes. There's this bunch from Europe, and there's the other bunch from America. Now, we'll just keep that up on the screen for a minute. Let's understand the American position. I understand that the American 28-point plan does say, yeah, you got to lose some of that land, Zelensky. You got to give up some of that land. You're not going to get it back. It also talks about making the army 600,000, which sounds pretty big to me. 9 times bigger than the British army. But apparently there's a limit there. And then they also talk about no NATO, very Freudian there, no NATO membership. Those are the three requests, aren't they? That doesn't seem to mention denazification.
Yeah. So very, very simply, what happened was when the Alaska meeting went on, Trump basically asked Putin if they could be a little flexible if they got the 3 main points that they wanted, which was demilitarization, denazification, and no Ukraine in NATO ever. And then, of course, when Trump went home, he tried to sell it to Zelensky. Zelensky wasn't having a bar of it. Then, of course, he reneged by turning around and saying we need to have an unconditional ceasefire. If we don't have an unconditional ceasefire, then, of course, we can't go anywhere with this. And literally, Putin was sitting there going, what's going on? We're waiting to hear from you on everything that we agreed on. We would agree on those 3. If those 3 points were in there, then we would find some flexibility in getting to a point where we could stop this war. Of course, Trump went back on that. So, of course, Russia pressed on. And, of course, as it got worse and worse and worse, finally they've gone back to this and they've put together this hot pot of 28 points, which does include the 3 main points for Russia. And, of course, Ukraine are up in arms. And, of course, Europe are completely devoid of any reality here. And, of course, the very first peace plan they tried to scupper, and they're trying to do the same thing here. And, of course, Rubio doesn't want this peace plan as much as he might say he does. Neither does Kellogg, because they want a ceasefire in Ukraine, and they want an unconditional ceasefire at that. It's not going to happen.
Now, Trump's been putting the pressure on to Zelensky, saying take this or it's going to get worse. US tells NATO, if Zelensky doesn't sign peace deal, Ukraine will face worse in the future. US Army Secretary briefs ambassadors at nightmare meeting in Kiev after to the Ukrainian leader. It does seem to me that Trump has lost patience. A lot of people say that he would lose patience, and he's lost patience now. And he clearly, in my view, clearly doesn't respect Zelensky. It doesn't. Nothing suggests to me that.
Yeah,
Zelensky and Trump
he's got nowhere to go, Lembit.
Okay, what do you mean by nowhere to go?
No, I mean he's got nowhere to go. And let's be honest here. Well, we've got. First of all, we've got Trump, who's tried everything he can to get the Russians to agree to things that the Russians don't want to agree to. There are no cards to play there. And Zelensky, on one hand, Trump doesn't have any cards with the Russians, and Zelensky doesn't have any cards with the Americans. So at the end of the day, you've got Europe turning around, and of course they turned up at the White House, didn't they, after the last meeting, to try and talk Trump into a different point of view. They're going to try it this time, and already they've had a meeting where literally the Americans have gone, you're not living in the real world, you need to get real here, otherwise the situation, as America quite rightly stated, is going to get worse and worse and worse. And let me just put this to you. We know somebody who's very close to Dmitry Peskov, who is who is Putin's spokesman, Lembit, and Putin is more of a mind to let this play out on the battlefield. Because
he can win.
Yes. Why wouldn't you?
This lot in the picture don't seem to think so. There are the super mediocre politicians by and large from Europe, and you've got them just sitting around a table again, looking useless. And maybe that's an overly pejorative point, but nothing that the European Union and UK have done seems to have made a blind bit of difference.
Nor will it, Lembit. That's nor will it. It won't make a blind bit of difference what they say and what they come out with, because their demands are so ridiculous. When you are the loser in a war, you don't get to dictate the terms. It's as simple as that. The winner makes the rules.
I can't see why they don't understand that, because everything in my life experience tells me that if you're actually losing a war, you don't set the terms, you take the terms. But Zelensky seems to be in this delusional world, perhaps because of his terrible lack of experience in serious politics. Let's remember, he's a clown. He's a professional clown. That was his job, comedian. That he just doesn't get that if you're retreating all the time, then you're not going to be able to tell the others, oh, you can stop winning on the following terms. I mean, that's essentially what you'd have to say.
Yeah, exactly that. But in some ways as well, even though the realism of this, remember that Zelensky is not being told the truth, and Trump is not being told the truth. So Zelensky's not being told the truth by the people who are close to him, people like Sersky and commanders on the battlefield are not telling Zelensky the truth. And of course, Sersky and many others are turning around and telling Kellogg that, things aren't very good. And Kellogg, of course, is lying through his teeth as well, telling Trump that, Ukraine are doing fine. They just need more weapons. They just need more money. And of course, people are going along with this. But the reality of the situation is decent, ordinary Ukrainian people are dying. Ukraine are losing massively. There was an exchange of bodies just the other day. 1,000 Ukrainians were returned to Ukraine. 30 Russians were returned to Russia. That's how bad it is on the front line. But of course, everybody's being told a different thing, and Zelensky has nowhere to go. I mean, he's being told over and over again how bad he's being told it's bad by other people. And of course, he's not believing it because his own guys on the ground are telling him something completely different, Lembit.
It's just a ridiculous situation. And then they got this plan. We won't be able to read it, but to give you an idea of how dull it looks. There we are. There's a 24-point European counter-proposal in full. Now, we'll go over that in full detail on the rerun of your show at 11 a.m. GMT today. But as I'll put that up there, people want to freeze frame it. They can read it. What are the main differences, would you say, between the 24-point EU plan and the 28-point US plan?
Well, there's no talk whatsoever about, but there is talk about NATO. They should be able to determine their own right whether they want to go into NATO or not. There is no talk about demilitarization, and in fact, Farage has come out and said that Ukraine shouldn't be limited to 600,000 troops. And there, of course, when they turn around, there's no word whatsoever about any denazification whatsoever. There is lots of talk about there should be an unconditional ceasefire straight away, and we won't talk about any territorial gains until that ceasefire is completely done. There has to be security guarantees with NATO troops going in and everything else. So it is just a complete nonsense. And I think there is probably only one point. There is only one point in that 24-point plan that they have come up with that the Russians are likely to agree to, which won't happen anyway because Hungary and Serbia do not want Ukraine in the EU. All the rest is a non-starter, Lembit.
What I'm concerned. Did you say Farage said this?
Yes. Yep.
That's interesting. Yes. Tipped to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. It seems to me there's an opportunity for substantial differentiation on this one for Reform UK versus the legacy parties, but there we go. But there's a problem with what you said here. They want the Ukrainians to come into the European Union, but they're corrupt. You got corrupt stories coming out all the time. Here's one. Zelensky sanctions former business partners. $100 million fraud scandal rocks Ukraine. This November 14th.
Yes,
you wouldn't imagine any country with this reputation for corruption could possibly be allowed in to infect the financial systems of European Union. But suddenly, that's all thrown into the fire for political reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it's all gone down the golden toilet, as they should say. And of course, there is this golden bathroom, isn't there? But of course, we're looking at Mindich, who is one of Zelensky's money men, shall we say, helping invest money for Zelensky. Rustem Umerov, the defense minister, he is implicated. There is going to be a warrant for his arrest, of course, and many of these people have fled. Mindich is actually in Israel, and of course many others have fled the country. Of course, this is all down to NABU, who are the Americans control the anti-corruption unit in Ukraine called NABU, and of course Zelensky tried to take that back in-house and have Ukraine run it, and very quickly the Americans shut him down by saying no more aid. So of course he couldn't do that. And the upshot of this is they're starting to ask where all this money has gone. But at the end of the day, Lembit, America always knew where the money had gone. Europe always knew that there was mass corruption going on. It's just now that they're losing the war. Suddenly they're starting, America, because Zelensky won't admit to this peace process, they're going to throw him under the bus.
It's interesting that you say that, because Simeon Boykov, who seems to be well clued up on it as well, he's been highlighting these fraud stories, and they're all over the world in the press, all over the world. And you wouldn't dream of having such an apparently corrupt regime in the European Union. Can't they see that if they do bring Ukraine into the European Union without getting it sorted out, they're just bringing this horrendous level of fraud? Or somebody from Ukraine's government can phone me up and say that this isn't true, and I'll give you airspace if you want. Or, you can broadcast your retraction of what I've said, and if you're persuasive, I'll retract what I've said too. But I don't think that's going to happen, Warren, because everybody assumes that Ukraine's got tons of corruption going on. And if they do bring up clear evidence it's not happening, then I'll admit it. But I don't mean anyone who thinks Ukraine's uncorrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. Ukraine is probably the most corrupt country out there. But you've also got to remember, in the world that we're living in, Lembit, now, don't get me wrong, the Russians did this to sort of embarrass the European Union. But they brought up at the UN a vote to say that we shouldn't glorify, the should we say, the right-wing, neo-Nazi or neo-Nazi or ultra-nationalist. We shouldn't glorify this sort of thing. And they did it just to embarrass Ukraine. Because they know that the whole of their shall we say, military is infested with this ideology, and almost every single European country voted against the glorification of Nazism in Ukraine at the UN.
Hang on, they voted against or against the motion to stop it?
They voted against.
It's very important we get this right. So,
yep.
So Russia proposed that they stop having Nazi influences in Ukraine. And what did the European countries do? Said, yes, that needs to stop, or no, we're voting against that, and they can carry on.
No, they voted against it. It seems now that they're our friends. But back in 2022, there was the BBC and everybody was full of, we've got these right-wing neo-Nazis, we've got to get rid of them. They should, they are infecting Ukraine. Soon as the war started, couldn't do enough for them. And of course, the vote in the UN turned around and literally said, no, we're not interested in stopping this movement. Let it carry on.
It's crazy stuff. And meanwhile, so just in terms of the 24-point plan, 28-point plan, is either plan going to get anywhere, do you think, Warren? The US plan, the 8-point plan?
Okay, so the US plan, it's a little bit in there for everybody and a little bit of nothing. There's probably about 10 points, Lembit, in the 28-point USA plan that you could say that both might agree on, but there's nothing substantial there. The European one, there's probably 1 point they could agree on. It's an absolute nonsense and irrelevance and should be dismissed straight away.
Have the Americans got the power to do what it says here? Just let them hang and suffer even bigger defeats? Can America cause that? Because Europe's buying weapons from America. What a great deal that is for the States. They sell
Yes.
Europe the weapons. Europe gives them, as far as I can see, for free to Ukraine.
Well, there's two things that can happen here, Lembit. Either the Americans, because we've already seen Trump start to walk back by saying, "Oh, it's not set in stone." There's room, there's wiggle room here on both sides of the aisle. Now, if he gets lots and lots of trouble from the neocons, from Rubio, from Witkoff, from Lindsey Graham, who start to turn people against him, then Trump is going to backtrack on some of that stuff that he's given concessions to the Russians and start to harden his stance again towards Russia, like he did the last time they had the peace process in Alaska. And we'll just go round and round again, and the Russians will just keep taking territory, Lembit.
Well, this is it. So let's make a couple of predictions before we finish. That's looking pretty bad for Ukraine at the moment, isn't it? There's a lot of land being lost. Surprisingly small number of Ukrainian civilian lives, but an awful lot of Ukrainian military being killed. Why would Russia be in any hurry to stop this if they can win the land they want through military means?
Yeah, they absolutely are not in a hurry to stop it. In fact, Putin's quite happy to let this play out. Remember, he doesn't gain much if they walk away. If they freeze it, I mean, they're talking about freezing the conflict in the Donbass. Now, the Russians are never going to agree to that because as far as the Russians are concerned, anybody that's left in the Donbass is going to be killed by the Ukrainian nationalists. So they don't want the Donbass to be occupied by Ukraine at all.
Well, I remember that Putin said, "Give us what we want, we'll stop fighting." And Zelensky said no. And Putin more or less said, "All right, well, we'll take it then." And I saw in your program.
And of course.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here, Lembit. This war could have been stopped many moons ago. In fact, Jens Stoltenberg, the former head of NATO, turned around and said that there was a peace deal on the table that would have been much better for them. And if they carry on, the situation, America are absolutely right on this point. If Ukraine carry on, the situation's only going to get worse. And as for NATO, as for the Americans, unless the Americans go in, you're going to hear lots and lots of talk from the European Union. The idiots in the EU circus they're going to talk a good game, Lembit, but they're not going to put boots on the ground.
Thank you so much. That's Warren Thornton. Before we go, actually, can we just talk to Warren again? Thank you. Where can people find out more about your shows, Warren?
Certainly, if they head across to Patreon and type in Warren Thornton, they'll be able to find us there. They can always also find us at warrenthornton.com. We do a show Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And, of course, on Sundays at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. with the wonderful Lembit Öpik from Unprecedented TV.
And we have a non-aggression pact. We don't tend to broadcast when you're on air from 6 till 8. And it's always a pleasure to be on your show. So at 11 o'clock today, if you're watching this live, 11 a.m., you can see a longer version of the sort of conversation we're having. Goes into more detail and some fascinating clips as well. I wonder what you think. Do have your say on X. Very interesting to hear your views as well. You maybe disagree. We're a free speech channel, so we don't find that in any way offensive. Also, do please subscribe at Unprecedented TV on the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll find close to 600 shows there already, and getting more and more every week. And if you've got ideas for shows, do let us know as well. And a big thank you to SIFA, SIFFA, the International Film Festival, which I've been honoured to be involved with, which is continuing in London this week. We're discussing things with them. Maybe we can get some creative output from them as well. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Thanks to the team. Thanks to Warren Thornton at warrenthornton.com. I'm Lembit Öpik. This is Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. I'll see you soon.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.